My name is Liezl Fernando, and I'm here today to talk about the cosplay phenomenon. I know many of you are unfamiliar with what cosplay is. Maybe you assume that it's just a bunch of adult nerds running around in Party City costumes at Comic-Con. But I assure you it's something much more than that, and I hope that after my talk, you realize why it's so special and what it means to me personally. Sorry, do I have the clicker for the PowerPoint? Where's the clicker? Sorry. So the rise of nerd culture has been extremely apparent throughout recent years, such as with the success of huge movies like Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Esports, or competitive video gaming, is extremely popular nowadays and almost regarded like a real sport, worth over $700 million. And San Diego Comic-Con, or the largest convention in the United States, welcomes over 130,000 fans of pop culture and comic books every year. And with the rise of this nerd culture and this growing popularity, cosplay, or the art of transforming into fictional characters, is also becoming mainstream. But how did this start? Why is cosplay a thing? Fan costuming began as early as 1909 in the United States, and it was based off science fiction characters. Back then it was referred to as masquerade. And the term cosplay was coined in 1983 by Nobuyuki Takahashi, a Japanese magazine writer. And he created the word cosplay by combining costume and play. But nowadays, cosplay is far from just about playing around. By 2019, cosplay will be a $23.6 billion industry. Most of us do make our own costumes from scratch, and all the tools, the fabrics, the wigs that we need to make our costumes can be very expensive. There are many Asian manufacturers who actually mass-produce high-quality costumes for people who don't have the ability to make their own. People have actually made livelihoods and careers out of cosplay. For instance, there are people who sell their own cosplays and make them for others. There are people who are professional cosplayers and get invited to events all around the world and are treated like real celebrities. So cosplay is a legitimate business and industry that people actually make jobs out of. But why is cosplay so special? Why are so many people drawn to it? To answer this, I'm going to break it down into three major aspects of what I've learned and experienced with cosplay. And that is storytelling, community, and passion. Now, I've always kind of felt like I was the odd one out. Even amongst my closest group of friends, I always just felt like kind of an oddball. Sorry about that. And I couldn't really explain why. A long time, I've struggled with awkwardness, with insecurity, social anxiety, even depression, and that's affected me a lot. When I was a kid, I was very shy. I loved performing on stage, but I had problems expressing myself and making friends. When I was about 6 or 7, I went to this holiday party. I went to this neighborhood party, and being a tomboyish girl that I was hanging out with the boys, and that's how I ended up playing my very first video game, Super Mario World for the SNES. Within the first 5 minutes, I was in love. I felt transported to this new world. I was riding Yoshi, going through the Mushroom Kingdom. I was flying around in a cape. I was battling Iggy on that little platform over boiling lava. And it was this game that introduced me to creative storytelling. And this was very prominent throughout my life. My sister and I would spend endless hours creating stories with our toys. We would create these characters, these worlds that we lived in. And that's exactly what I do with cosplay. Cosplay is different from Halloween costumes because we're not just dressing up. We are becoming a character. We're bringing it to life. We love these stories and these characters so much that we want to live them and become them. It's one step further than just playing a video game character or making fan art or writing fan fiction. We are inserting ourselves into these worlds, and therefore we build a bridge between the real and imaginary. And we tell stories not only through the characters we become, but the costumes themselves. Cosplay is an incredibly creative hobby, And for me, my costumes became a sort of language that allowed me to express myself in ways that words never could. And it gave me an immediate connection with people. For instance, my Articuno costume that I made last year. Now, Articuno is a Pokemon. I'm sure everyone knows what Pokemon is. It's a franchise that I grew up on. I still play every new game to this day, and I can name practically like all 900 of them. And I wanted to bring one of my original favorites to life. Articuno is a legendary Pokemon, and I wanted to make a costume that matched that description. And I decided this armored mage warrior-like character would really match. And so I made this initial design. I worked weeks trying to perfect it. I wanted this cool headpiece, you know, I designed all the armor and I made these giant wings, and then I went to work. For months, I took over my kitchen table. It was covered with feathers and glue and paint, and I pushed myself creatively until I was finally able to debut this costume last summer. And through this costume, I was telling a story. I was creating this world in which this legendary ice-bird warrior exists. There were people who were cosplaying as Pokemon trainers and other Pokemon, and they came up to me and wanted to battle me or try to capture me. I had Pokemon Go fans yelling, "Team Mystic," as they walked past. There were people who didn't even know what character I was, and they were impressed by the scale of what I had made. Costumes are a form of communication, of expression to other fans and to people around us. For cosplayers, it's a way for us to live out these fantasies we have in our brain and bring other people into them as well. By putting on a costume, it gives us the power of the characters that we become. And we can become someone greater than just ourselves. For instance, people with disabilities can transform into characters that empower them. Women with hijab, like this Poison Ivy cosplayer, can express themselves creatively. You can create crossovers like this cool Star Wars and Beauty and the Beast crossover. You can make gender bends, you can do steampunk versions, you can do whatever you want because that is the nature of cosplay. And when I put on a cosplay, I'm no longer the shy, awkward Liezl that I thought myself as. I was a warrior, ready for battle. I was a cute idol performing on stage. I was a Disney princess going on adventures. And when I take that costume off, I was inspired to make my life reflect the characters that I portray. Cosplaying introduced me to this creative side of myself, and it helped nurture my love of storytelling. Now, when I got to junior high, I still love these fantasy worlds and video games. I watched classic anime like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. I lived and breathed Disney. But it was at this age where everyone was trying to be cool. You know, everyone said, cartoons are for babies, you know, and I was scared of being judged by people, and I thought that people would make fun of me, so I decided to hide that side of myself. But that was so part of my personality that I ended up hiding like pretty much everything about me. Most people, besides my very close friends, didn't really know much about me besides that I got good grades and I played the piano. And I hid this up through high school until one day me and my best friend heard about this local convention called AkiCon. Now, I had no idea what cosplay was back then, but it was around Halloween time, so we decided to check this convention out, cosplaying as some characters from the anime Bleach. And I do not have photos of this event because it was bad, but I do have this one photo of these same costumes taken about a year later, and you can see how cringy it was. I didn't know how to pose, I didn't have makeup, I didn't know like how to use wigs or anything, so I actually had my hair cut short to match the character. Looking back at this, I find this extremely cringy, like you are all privileged to see this photo. But back then, I had such an amazing time and I wanted to do more. Soon after that, I found professional cosplayers online, like Yayahan, Andela Cosplay, and Kamui Cosplay. They became my idols. They made all these cool costumes from scratch, from these fantastic materials and methods, and I wanted to do that too. And that's how I started making my own costumes and learning how to sew and craft. The very first costume I ever made was Homura Akemi from Madoka Magica. And Homura is one of my all-time favorite anime characters, so it was a really big deal for me to cosplay her. But again, I was still scared of being judged. cosplay is different from other art because you can't just anonymously post on the internet. You know, it is your face, your body being critiqued. And I thought people would say, oh, I didn't look like her enough, my costume wasn't accurate enough. I was legitimately worried people would call me out because I have darker skin. But as I started attending events and meeting new cosplayers and posting my photos online, I realized that I got really positive feedback. People said that I was a good representation of this character and really empowered me. And that's when I started realizing how accepting the cosplay community is. So, you know, cosplay is about transforming into these wacky, crazy characters with giant hairdos and magical powers. So, you know, it makes sense that the community is so accepting of whoever you are, no matter your size, your shape, gender, race, sexual orientation. Crosplaying or cosplaying as the gender opposite that you identify with is actually very accepted and very normal. For instance, this center photo is a cosplay group I was in. I'm the one with the purple hair. One of these cosplayers is actually a male. I'm not telling you which one, you gotta figure that on your own. The cosplayer on the right is a very famous female Japanese cosplayer, cosplaying as Levi from Attack on Titan. And this cosplayer is actually a male. And this is, you know, completely normal for us and accepted. Cosplayers are just a bunch of fans having fun. You know, there's no organization we're a part of. There's no leadership, hierarchy of people telling us what to do. We just get together and do it because it's fun. And there are cosplayers who get together to actually do good for the community. There are charities and groups that do stuff. One of the most famous ones is the 501st Legion. They are a group of volunteers who make movie-accurate Star Wars costumes. They promote interest in Star Wars and also raise money for charities. There are cosplayers who visit sick kids in hospitals, so these kids can meet their heroes and get cheered up. And being part of the cosplay community made me part of this network of people that I'd never experienced before. At school, you know, I had little groups of friends, but never this overreaching network of people that went all the way across the United States, even around the world. And it made so many cool things possible, these collaborations, such as this giant 18-person group I was in last year. You have no idea how hard it is to organize 18 cosplayers during a busy convention weekend, but we made it work. This photo gallery that I set up back there would not have been possible if I couldn't reach out to this network of people that I had met throughout the years, and they were so amazing to send me these photos so I can show you all what cosplay is about. And being part of this community made me feel like I didn't have to hide myself anymore. I was finally surrounded by weirdos like me who accepted who I was and my interests. And I was meeting new people at every event. People who knew my character that I never met before could come up to me and say, oh, what did you think of this episode of the anime? Or how did you make this part of your costume? And it really improved my social skills. Cosplay created this community of people connected by similar interests. And being part of it boosted my confidence and really helped me face my social anxiety head on. Now, arguably the most important thing I've learned from cosplay is passion. For most of my life, I felt like I wasn't really passionate about anything. I played the piano just because. I liked ballet, but I wasn't that good. I loved video games, but I felt that just playing video games wasn't really a passion. And when I was a kid, I was told that I was going to be a doctor when I grew up. Typical Asian parents, am I right? And at the time, I didn't really question it because I didn't really have any other dream jobs at the time. So I went through high school, I got to college, declared my major in chemistry, still believing that the medical field was right for me. It wasn't until sophomore year that I realized that I hate biology. Like, I really, really hate biology. And it was at that moment where I realized I couldn't force myself into medical school if I didn't really love what I was learning. And so I decided to leave the pre-med track behind. It was a very difficult decision for me because for so much of my life, being a doctor was like my identity, and now that was gone. And I had no idea where to go. I started getting this existential crisis of who I am and what I was supposed to be. And I started getting those feelings of depression. Even after graduating with my degree in chemistry, I still had no clear direction on where I was going. And throughout these struggles, I just was still continuing with cosplay. And it was at this time where I made Noir from the Neptunia series. At the time, it was my most advanced cosplay to date. I had started learning so many new techniques. I used thermoplastics for the first time. I used heat transfer vinyl for the gold details, and I was so proud of how it turned out. And I wore it to this convention called KrakenCon. And there is where I met the CEO of Edge Interns, Francis Kong. He came up to me in this cosplay and he said, "You know, I think you'd be good in this thing called Miss Asian Global." And I said, "Are you talking to the right person? Like me in a pageant?" Like I still thought I was the most awkward person, you know. I didn't think I was that pretty. Like on a daily basis, I wear a t-shirt and jeans and I never wear an ounce of makeup. But having someone come up to you and say, "You should do this," I was like, sure, why not? Like, when am I going to get this opportunity? And in 2016, I was in Miss Asian Global and I ended up winning Miss Asian Talent. But more importantly, I was part of this new network of amazing women who were all intelligent and accomplished and talented. And it really inspired me to do something greater with my own life. Making these connections actually led to a professional development in cosplay. I started working with Blackstorm Labs and I made some costumes of characters from their game Everwing. And I actually got to go to events and conventions representing them and talking about the game. And this was like mind-blowing. I was getting paid to make costumes and you know, this was just a dream come true for me. And I was still kind of thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. And some people ask me, why don't you just become a costume designer? And that's great and all, but through these experiences, I started to realize that I can apply it to something greater than just costumes. Cosplay changed how I see the world. It made me realize that I really love the technical side of things. I like making things and designing, and I like learning how things work. I want to get my hands dirty, and I like learning new techniques. With every new costume I make, I wanted to make it bigger and better. I use thermoplastics, 3D printing, LED lights, heavy machinery. And I've always really loved math and wanted to do something with that, with my career. But at the same time, I liked the side of art and creativity and designing. After years of feeling confused and lost, a light bulb finally went in my head and I realized what the perfect intersection of these two things are, and that's engineering. With engineering, I can combine the knowledge of math and science that I've learned throughout my years of education and put it together with art and designing and making cool stuff. And now I'm applying for graduate school in mechanical engineering. I want to design and make cool, innovative structures and robotics and things that can help people and maybe even inspire them. Cosplay is what gave me that spark I needed to realize what I was meant to do. All of this, the pageant, working for Blackstorm, finding my calling in engineering, it happened because I decided to give into my nerdy side and dress up like an anime character. Following my passion in doing something and putting all of my time and energy into something I loved, it led me to opportunities and experiences that I never would have even dreamed of having. I felt that being a cosplayer, transforming into these other characters, was the first time I chose to do something for myself. And it ironically helped me get on track to be the person I want to be. So yeah, cosplay can be weird and crazy and silly, but that's what makes it awesome. It's a platform for unlimited creativity. It's inspired from fantasy worlds and it brings those worlds to real life. It made people with insecurities like me feel connected with people and, you know, build these friendships. It helped create communities and support groups that even leads to professional developments. Cosplay is more than just playing in costumes. It's become a cultural phenomenon that's really changed my life. I'm no longer that shy person scared about what people think of her and where am I supposed to go in my life. I have transformed. And I hope that maybe one day you may be inspired to join us and be immersed in our fantasy worlds too. Thank you.